Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Oh my, look at all these apples. Don't they just look delicious? Oh, I just can't wait to eat them. I wonder which one I should eat first. Oh, maybe I'll just eat them all. They are just so awesome. Hello there. Welcome to Grandma Kitty's house. And I'm Grandma Kitty, of course. I was just checking out these apples. Apples are just so awesome. Just such an awesome fruit, don't you think? There's just so much you can do with an apple. I have a book here about a couple named the Zieglers, and they own an apple orchard. And it's a lot of work to take care of an apple orchard. Did you know that? Why don't we read this story together and see what they have to do to keep their apples in shape? So this is the Zieglers and their apple orchard, and it was written by Alice Flanagan, and the photographs were taken by Romy Flanagan. So let's check this out. Mr. and Mrs. Ziegler own a large apple orchard in Illinois. They live in the orchard in a beautiful house. From their house, they can see their orchard of 1,500 apple trees. Isn't that a lot of trees? Mr. and Mrs. Ziegler are always very busy. From late fall to spring, they prune or trim the trees. Mr. Ziegler saws the large branches and sells them as firewood. Mrs. Ziegler puts the smaller branches in a wagon. Later, they will be chopped into tiny chips. She will put them in her garden. The trees go through many changes during the year. Their first leaves appear in April. By May, the trees are covered with tiny flowers called blossoms. As soon as the trees blossom, the Zieglers bring hives of honeybees to the orchard. The bees collect sweet nectar and yellow pollen from the blossoms. Then they take both to their hives to make honey. Oh, we were just talking about bees not too long ago, weren't we? Bees collect the pollen in special pouches on their back legs. As the bees visit each flower, they leave behind some of the pollen. This is called pollination. Apple blossoms need to be pollinated so that the fruit will grow. Oh, well, we were just talking about that not too long ago. Mr. Ziegler sprays the trees with special chemicals to keep them healthy. The chemicals keep harmful insects and fungus away. Mr. Ziegler also cuts the grass around the trees so hungry mice and rabbits won't nest in the grass and eat the bark of the trees. Every day, Mrs. Ziegler drives her truck through the orchard to check on the trees. Some of the early apples are ready to be eaten by the second week of September. Then the Zieglers open the orchard. Many people come to pick apples and have fun. Some adults have been coming to the Zieglers' orchard ever since they were children. Now they bring their own children. Families look forward to picking apples every year. It's a tradition. I used to take my kids every year. It is fun to go picking apples. Even the Zieglers pick apples. Sometimes they get help from one of their sons. The Zieglers sort and polish the apples, then they sell the apples in their store. Every year, the Zieglers make delicious apple juice called sweet cider to sell in their store. And no one goes home without buying one of Mrs. Ziegler's famous homemade apple strudels. Oh, looks yummy. Mr. and Mrs. Ziegler are happy at the end of a good season. Their hard work paid off. The trees gave them a good crop of apples. Then winter comes and the orchard freezes. The trees store their energy. They will need it for new growth in the spring. Oh, isn't that a nice story? Did you like that story? Yeah, so did you realize that apple orchards are so much work? Apple trees will grow and they'll produce fruit, but they really need someone to help them so that they'll produce more fruit. So did you see what they do here? They prune the trees And that means that they cut off the extra branches, because if the tree has too many branches, it puts all its energy into growing branches instead of apples. And branches don't do us any good, huh? We want the fruit so we can eat it. Yes. And then remember we were talking a while ago about the bees and how, see how they had to bring some beehives in to pollinate their trees so that it would produce fruit. And apple orchards are just so beautiful in the spring when they have all those beautiful white flowers. Yeah. And then they have to spray the trees, and that's called using pesticides. Remember, we had talked about that too. Yes, because you know, the thing with apples is that the bugs, the insects, and the worms, they like apples just as much as we do because they're just so sweet and delicious. And so you don't want to cut into an apple and find half a worm. That would be pretty gross. Huh? It'd be even more gross if you bit into the apple and found half a worm. Oh, that would be really bad. Yeah. So they have to put pesticides on there to try to protect the trees and make sure that the apples don't get full of worms and bugs. Yeah. So then once the apples are ready, families can go pick them, or you can make things with them. You know, I have a folder here. It's called Things to Make with Apples, and oh my goodness, there's just so much you can do with apples. So let's see what we have in here. Apple pie. I think apple pie is probably the most popular thing to do, and maybe the most delicious too. Oh, apple pie is just so good. Sometimes you can make it with a double crust, a crust on top or a crust on the bottom, but I like to make it with crumb topping. Oh, just so delicious. Oh, applesauce. Applesauce is fun to make. Have you ever made applesauce? You know, all I do when I make applesauce, I cut the apples in quarters. Now, if I cut it in quarters, how many pieces am I going to have? 4, right, 4 pieces. And then I don't even peel them. I don't take the seeds out or anything. I just throw it right in a pan, put water on top, and I cook it until they're soft, and then I put it in a food mill. Have you ever seen a food mill before? I've got one here to show you. This is a food mill. Kind of looks like a pan, but it's got holes in the bottom, and it's got this thing that cranks around. Yeah, do you know why they call it a food mill? I suppose because you put food in it, and then you crank it around kind of like a mill. Well, this is what my kids used to do. They would do the cranking. I would put the apples in there, and they would do the cranking, and it would push all the applesauce right out through the bottom. Now, and then once I made applesauce, I freeze it frequently, and then I can use it for applesauce cake or applesauce cookies and put oatmeal in there, or you can just, you know, put sugar and cinnamon in there and eat the applesauce. Now, here's something interesting about applesauce. Did you know if you use red apples, you'll end up with pink applesauce, and if you use green apples, you'll end up with yellow applesauce. Isn't that pretty cool? Yeah. So, or how about candy apples? Candy apples are delicious. Have you ever made them? You put a popsicle stick in the apple, and then you have to melt down the candy mixture, and you dip your apple in. But you got to be very careful when you do it because the candy mixture is very hot, and you don't want to get burned. But oh, they are delicious, aren't they? And then apple cider. Well, to make apple cider, you have to have a press, and you put the apples in the press, and then you crank it, and it just mashes the apples right down and squeezes all the juice out and makes cider. Now, you can also make apple juice. This is apple juice. And the difference is the apple juice is filtered, so it's nice and clear, and the apple cider is more mushed, and there might be a little bit more pulp in there, but they're both very good. Apple crisp, you peel your apples and cut them up in pieces and put them in a pan, and then you put a crumb topping with oatmeal and brown sugar and cinnamon and butter, and oh, that's really good too. You can make apple jelly. Oh, here, apple jelly or apple butter. Apple jelly, like the apple juice, it's clear. Apple butter, you cook it down until it's a thicker substance. It's used the same. You use it like spread on toast or sandwiches. It's used the same, but it's just made differently. I've never made apple butter, and I've never made this either. Apple fritters. Have you ever had apple fritters? I've made corn fritters where you make your batter and you put corn in and then you fry it in oil. But apple fritters, you would use chunks of apples and you would fry it in the oil. And it's not necessarily healthy for you because it's fried in oil, but it's good, yeah, but it's good. And every once in a while, it's okay to have a snack like that. Oh, here's something else that's very good. Apple cider donuts. Oh, yes. So much good stuff that you can make with apples, huh? Yeah, so it makes me kind of hungry talking about all that good food. So I thought we could talk about apples a little bit. Do you know how many different kinds of apples there are? You think 100? Oh, you think 200? Yeah. If I had to guess, I would have said, oh, maybe 1,000 or 1,500. But look at this. 7,500 different types of apples, 7,500 varieties. Wow, that's a lot of different apples. I only have a few different kinds of apples here, but there are 7,500 different types of apples. That is incredible, isn't it? So I thought maybe you could help me identify some of these apples. Now, the most popular are Red Delicious, Fuji, and Granny Smith. And I do not have a Fuji, but I have a Red Delicious. So let's see. The Red Delicious obviously would be red, right? So I'm guessing this one here would be the Red Delicious. All right, Granny Smith. Do you know what color Granny Smith is? Granny Smith is green. So here's a nice green one right here. This is probably Granny Smith. Macintosh. Macintosh is usually a combination of green and red. So this one here is probably the Macintosh. Yeah. And then Cortland. Oh, Cortlands are big. Yeah, they're a big apple. So probably this one here is the Cortland. Yeah. And then Mutsu. Have you ever heard of a Mutsu? Isn't that a funny name? I always think of mut as like a mixture of something, but Mutsu is a mixture of a Golden Delicious, which is yellow, and an Indo, but I don't know what an Indo is, but I know that it is green. I think this one here is the Mutsu. I just think that's a funny name for an apple. And Ginger Gold, this one here has a little bit of yellow on it, so I'm guessing this one here is probably the Ginger Gold. And then, oh, we have the Honey Crisp left, and that's got kind of a yellowish golden look to it, so I would say this one here is the Honey Crisp. All right, and oh my, well, what are these things here? Oh, look at these little guys. These guys are just little, aren't they? Tiny little things. You know what I think these are? I think that these are crab apples. Do you know what crab apples are good for? No, nothing really. No, you can't eat them. You can't really do anything with them. You can make crab apple jelly, so I guess they're good for crab apple jelly. Do you know what my mother told me that crab apples are good for? She said you get a nice thin stick, and you put the crab apple on the end of the stick, and you go like that, and you can really throw it. Yeah, that sounds like fun, doesn't it? So I think maybe I'll get some sticks, and maybe I'll try that with my grandchildren, and we can fling some crab apples and see how far they go. So, it's kind of funny to think, why would a tree put so much effort into growing something that you couldn't even use? It's a fruit that is pretty much useless, huh? That's just kind of a funny thought, isn't it? Yeah, well, well, there are things in life that really don't make sense sometimes, like crab apples and hornets and oh, diarrhea. Oh, gross. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's just plain gross. Oh, but you know what? Apples have a lot of fiber in them, and if you eat too many, that's what could happen. Yeah. Oh, I have something here. Oh, this is very helpful to remember. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Yeah. So when you're eating apples, you probably want to limit yourself to just an apple a day, because if you eat too many apples or you drink too much apple cider or apple juice, yeah, bad things could happen. Yeah. So trust me, just stick with one apple a day. Yeah, that would probably be a good idea. Yeah. So I think that maybe we need to move on to a better topic, because that one kind of stinks. Yeah. So let's do Move and Groove now. I have a new song for you today. So let's see what we have here. All right. Oh, here we go. Sounds like we have an Irish jig today.
Trust in God alone, we will stand upon His word, and whatever
nice tune to it, didn't it? Yeah. So remember, when you move and groove, it makes your heart happy. You know, your heart was designed to beat. That's its job. That's what it's supposed to do. So you want to make your heart beat because that's when your heart is happy, when it's beating and working hard. Yeah. So always make sure to get your exercise. Okay, let's check our bee basket today. Let's see what we have here. Remember that our bee basket, those are the things that we want to be in life, right? So let's see what we have in here today. Oh, let's see. We have, oh, here it is. Be useful. Huh. Well, that's very interesting. Be useful. Yeah. You know, we've been talking about apples and how useful apples are and all the things you can use them for. You know, I've got this other book here. It's by Gail Gibbons, and it's about apples. And so she talks about some of the things. We talked about a lot of things you can use apples for, but look, she has a picture of them eating apples. Here's friends in the orchard together picking apples, and they're eating apples, and oh, apples are useful to just eat plain, aren't they? Yeah. And then she talks about also some of the things we did, apple juice and apple cider and apple jelly and applesauce. Yeah, but then she also talks about the fair. Do you ever go to fairs? Oh, I just love going to the fair. And in the fall, sometimes they have things like judging contests. Like sometimes you see things that have grown all summer long, like giant pumpkins and things like that, and they judge to see which was the biggest and the heaviest. But sometimes they judge the best apples, or sometimes the best apple pie. Yeah, so that's fun. Oh, and then look, she's got some Halloween stuff, and here they are with the candy apples, and we talked about the candy apples, but how about this? Bob for apples. Have you ever done that? Bob for apples? You put water in a big tub or a big bowl or big bucket, and then you have to pick it up with just your teeth. You can't use your hands. You got to put your hands behind you, and you just have to pick that apple up just by biting it. And that's pretty tricky to do. It is, yeah. And then she's got all these different kinds of apples. Look at how brightly colored they are and all the different colors. Yeah. So look at all those different kinds of apples, and they're all useful, all good for something, right? And you know, it kind of makes me think of people, you know, and people, they're all different, huh? Just like these apples, they have different colored eyes or different colored hair or different colored skin, they different sizes. They may be big or small or somewhere in between, but you know, everybody's useful in some way. Yeah. Remember, I have my bee sign that we talk about that says, believe in yourself, and Grandma Kitty always tells you that you have talents and abilities inside you that are good and useful. Yes, they are. So you have to figure out what is good, what you have for talents. You know, those are the things that make you happy, the things you enjoy doing, and the things that you are good at. Yes, and you can use those to make the world a better place. So that's a good way to be useful. Yeah. So you know, can you think of other ways you can be useful? How about at home? Has anyone ever said to you, make yourself useful? Have you ever heard that before? Yeah. So there are things you can do to be useful. Like if you see Mom with her hands full, like maybe she's carrying a laundry basket or she's got groceries and she needs someone to open the door, you could run over and open the door for her and be useful that way. Yeah. Or if she's, you know, having a hard time keeping ahead of your brothers and sisters, you could help her out with that, or pick up your toys, or if she's talking to you, instead of just playing on your video game or whatever you're doing, you could actually stop and listen to her. Yes. So being useful is kind of like being helpful. Yeah. So I've got this little thing I wanted to show you here. Let's pretend that this is Mom. And see Mom, she's just kind of chilling here. She's happy. You know, when you're being useful and helpful, your mom is thinking, oh, what good kids I have. They are so useful and so helpful and so good and so well behaved. And she's just smiling and happy. Doesn't she look happy? Yeah, and then like if maybe you get this spurt of energy and all of a sudden you start like running around the house and you're screaming and yelling and hollering or fighting with your brothers or throwing things. You know what that does to Mom? You want to see? Oh my goodness, look at Mom. She doesn't look so happy anymore, does she? No. Do you think Mom likes it better when you're being useful and helpful? Or do you think Mom likes it better when you're out of control? I say Mom likes it better when you're being helpful around the house, don't you think? Yes, I think so too. We want to keep Mom happy, yeah. So you could always look for ways to be useful and helpful around the house. You know, you don't have to wait for Mom to tell you. You don't have to wait till she's walking through with an armful of laundry and trying to figure out how to get through the door. You don't have to wait for her to figure it out on her own. You could run over and say, "Let me help you, Mom." Yeah, or when you're coming home from grocery shopping and you're walking across the driveway and she's got bags of groceries, you could say, "Oh, let me get the door for you, Mom," and run over and open the door. Yeah, or if you see that she's having trouble with your brother and or sisters, you can, say, "Mom, I can help you out with them," and you can find something to do to keep your brother or your sister entertained. So you don't have to wait to be asked. If you volunteer to help, it will really make Mom happy. So let's try to keep Mom happy. We don't want her looking like this, do we? No, we want her to be happy like this. Yes, we do. So did you learn a lot about apples today? They do come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and colors, huh? I didn't get any golden delicious. They're yellow, but I had trouble finding them. But I thought I got a pretty good assortment of red and green and different colors and different shapes and sizes. And oh, they are so useful, aren't they? You can make pies and, oh, I didn't talk about muffins, but you can make pies and muffins and apple crisp and apple jelly and apple cider and, oh my goodness, just so many things you can do with apples. Apples are just an awesome, awesome fruit, and they are just useful. Yeah, so I hope you get to go to the apple orchard with your family and pick some apples and really have a fun time out there. I hope you do. And before we go today, I need to say hi to a special friend of mine. Let's see, where is she? Oh, there she is. Oh, hi, Haley. Hi. I heard that you like to watch Grandma Kitty's house when you're having breakfast. Oh, thank you so much. That makes me feel so special that you like to watch my show in the morning when you're eating your breakfast. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our show today about apples, and I hope you have a wonderful day. You make sure you tell your mom, Christina, that I said hi. All right, and thank you so much for watching me, and oh, I'm just glad everybody joined us today and talked about awesome apples, because that was fun to talk about. So I hope that you get to go to the apple orchard and pick some apples and make some fun things with your mother. Maybe you can make some applesauce and she'll let you crank the food mill. But I think that maybe I'll make an apple pie. That sounds really good. So I think maybe I'll go make an apple pie now. I better go warm up my oven. So will you all take care? You stay healthy, safe, and happy. And Grandma Kitty will see you next time. Bye-bye.